Namaskar to all of you. Respected chairperson of the session, Dr. Amarendra Mohanty, co-paper presenters Dr. Niranjan Pandit and Dr. Sudhakar Jali, my teacher present over here, Revered Professor Ganesh Prasad Das sir, esteemed Purnendu Chandra sir, grandson of Pandit Nilakantha Das, respected dignitaries and my dear student friends. First of all, I am thankful to Nandini madam and her team for giving me this opportunity on a special philosopher of Odisha. The title of my presentation is Pandit Nilakantha Das as a social reformer, a critical reflection. Before presenting the paper, I want to share certain things with the house. For the first time, I got the opportunity to read Pandit Nilakantha Das. Those who helped me in suggesting the title, guiding in my writing, and providing me materials, they are Professor Ganesh Prasad Das sir, Dr. Durga Madhava Prahara sir, and Dr. Basanta Kumar Das sir, and Dr. Purnendu Chandra Das sir. I have read only 2 books, that is his Atmajivani, his autobiography, and Darsanika Nilakantha, published by Pandita Nilakantha Smriti Samiti. There might be many lapses, I do agree, but I am open to all forms of corrections. So let me begin just with a little background. The culture of Odisha is the witness of 2 separate and distinct individual groups named as Panchasakha, who have influenced the religion, language, literature, caste, race and culture. These groups are named as classical Panchasakha or traditional Panchasakha and reformist or Satyavadi Panchasakha. Classical Panchasakha lived between 1450 to 1550 AD, and they influenced and enriched both the Odia literature and spiritual tradition. They were Achyutananda Das, Ananta Das, Jasavanta Das, Jagannath Das, and Balaram Das. All of them were Vaishnavites, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu addressed all of them as his Panchaatma. They were worshipping Shunya in a metaphysical sense. On the other hand, a band of selfless young comrades, namely Pandita Gopabandhu Das, Acharya Harihara Das, Pandita Nilakantha Das, Krupasindhu Misra, and Godavarisa Misra, who are distinguished scholars and committed national leaders who dreamt not only of Samruddha Odisha but also of Bharat, who are popularly known as Satyavadi Panchasakha. They belong to the late 19th and the early 20th century. Nilakantha Das, popularly known as the Pandit, was one of the pioneers of the Satyavadi school, which ushered a new era in the history of Odisha. Before going to the topic, let me give a brief introduction of the life and legacy of Pandit Nilakantha Das. He was a multifaceted personality. He was a brilliant scholar, an eminent educationist, an accomplished statesman, because I do not want to say him as a politician. Rather, I want to address him as a statesman, a man of literature, a prolific orator, a dedicated social reformer, and a freedom fighter. He was not a person, rather he himself was a living institution. He was born on 5th August 1884 in the village Sri Ramachandrapur, Sasana at Satyavadi Puri. The academic exposure he received from Revensa Collegiate School in his secondary level, from Revensa College in his undergraduate level, and from Kolkata University during his MA level, refined him as a person and made him a living institution. When he was about to go to Calcutta for his MA course, one of his teachers from Ravenshaw College named Gopal Chandra Ganguly asked him, "What is the need of higher education because you have already decided to join Satyavadi Vanavidyalaya?" Immediately he answered that one should have and one must have higher qualification to be the headmaster of the Satyavadi as it involves more responsibilities. He worked hard to make it a center of excellence, which was also a dream of Utkal Gopabandhu Das. Within few years, he became very popular among the students because of his proficiency in teaching and school administration. Being a change agent, Pandit ji consciously challenged the status quo and will to lead change initiatives with uncertain outcomes. It was under his inspiration that the scheduled caste students could stay with the Brahmin boys in the same hostel and both Savarna and Asavarna students dined together in the same room. This was against social evils and was in the line of the reform movements and the unique educational policy that reflected the spirit of the Arya Samaj. Panditji gives importance on reason and not on emotion. For him, reason always played a greater role than emotion in shaping his philosophical ideas. For him, everything should put into the bar of reason, as reason alone is the foundation of our knowledge and practices. Emotion without reason becomes dogma, and dogma for Panditji is nothing but a form of chittavriti. In his autobiography, he has mentioned about Mukta Ramachandra Das, who used to address him as Darshani, means Darshana Panthi. As Nilakantha was a rationalist, he taught his school students to think rationally and to become self-reliant. By highlighting more on reason, he introduced the free and critical thinking ability among his students in the Satyavadi. He tried to infuse the values and lifestyles of the ancient Gurukula system of education while taking into account modern day circumstances for personal and societal development. He aimed for holistic growth, which is already highlighted by Sudhakar sir, physical, mental, moral and societal of his students, which would reflect in their lives. As a social reformist, he also gives importance on education and the spread of education. According to him, education is life. An uneducated person is not a human but an animal because religion dominates in him. Education is a blind man's vision, a poor man's sustenance, and a helpless person's aid. A person is handicapped without knowledge, without reason. Education is the basis of wealth, prestige, and fame. A person without education will suffer from poverty, be humiliated by others, and will never be equals. There is no other way to strengthen the backbone of society. Education is the only answer. Consequently, the contributions of Nilakantha Das were so remarkable for the establishment of the Utkal University in Odisha is definitely praiseworthy, which is already highlighted by many speakers. He prepared the first draft for setting up this university. During the reorganization, keeping his contributions and experiences in view, he was appointed as the Pro-Chancellor of Utkal University in 1955. He successfully discharged his responsibilities as the Pro-Chancellor of Utkal University from 1955 to 1962. Though a strong supporter of Hinduism, Nilakantha was liberal in his religious outlook and had great respect for other religions. He was not a blind admirer or opponent of any religious faith. He was a strong critic of all the evil practices in the name of religion. He was very much doubtful to all the traditional practices. For Panditji, neither traditional is accepted or not accepted because it is traditional, nor modern or contemporary is accepted or not accepted because it is modern or contemporary. Both of them should be examined and evaluated only by the criteria of impartial reason and logic and humanitarian ability of distinguishing between right and wrong, good and bad, real and unreal. Bairagi Misra and Panditji both emphasize that the aim of social reform is not to eliminate tradition, rather to reject the unnecessary elements and to assimilate the new ideas so that a harmonious blend of old and new can be achieved, leading to achieve a progressive transformation in both individual level as well as societal level. Therefore, he revolted against the age-old superstitions and rituals. Since the early days of the school, the teachers, especially the headmaster Pandit Nilakantha, started actively working towards untouchability eradication, removal of blind beliefs, and a popular example here I want to quote that is all about Nisa Andolana that is written in his autobiography, in his Atmajivani. Brahmin preachers grew mustaches and shaved their beards. In those times, it was forbidden for a local Brahmin to grow mustache. The headmaster, however, held his ground when Orthodox people they approached him with this deviation. The headmaster held his ground and used his mastery over scriptures and debate to good effect. In another incident, the headmaster Nilakantha and the students even stood against the system of forced labor, locally called as begging, practiced by some princely states in Odisha. They stood up to the king's rule by their sheer audacity and perhaps boldly. He was also vehemently opposing the practices of occultism, tantrism, witch hunting, black magic, and so on. In his Atmajivani, there is a beautiful story regarding his opposition to this practice. Kalesi Choda. The person is the person who about whom he described in the that chapter. He is relative. He is a distant relative of him, but he physically, when he was practicing that practice, he physically assaulted him and also took care of his injury. The entire incident revealed that there is a structured way of class hierarchy whose objective is to exploit the innocent mass to have a good living. He succeeded in solving the problem locally. He gave a novel interpretation, and in another somewhere, I could not recall properly, in another article, I think I have read that से पॉइंट को छिंदे की फोपाड़ी देते किंतु ताको पढ़िला पर मो मन रे प्रश्न आसुथिला पॉइंट तो गोटे बाह्य जिंस ताको छिंदे की फोपाड़ी देले ठीक अछि किंतु भितरे जो बसी के रही छि ब्राह्मणवाद ताको से केते दूर छाड़ी पारिथिले सेही जाई ताको मो जदिबा माने खोला खोली भाव रे ता पई किछि एविडेंस पाई नाही किंतु जेहेतु ताकर ए जो अलगा जो प्रैक्टिसेस जेंति से शेड्यूल कास्ट पीपल को साइडर बसिकी एकाठी खाउथिले बा आउ जो प्रैक्टिस इतु मु भाबुची जे तांको भीतर मध्य भीतर थिबा जो ब्राह्मणवादर भावना ताको मध्य से काहेटी फिंगिबारे सक्षम मानिथिले. So he gave a novel interpretation of the classical concept of dharma. His concept of dharma is not at all a God-centric. This is again you can say this is his unique contribution. Dharma is not at all a God-centric but man-centric. His dharma is used in the sense of duty. Duty is to be done not at the cost of others, rather it should be in consonance with others. Because of his rational mind and human concern, his interpretation of dharma is also named as Jukti Dharma, Manava Dharma, and so on. The very concept is not trans-empirical, or it is not talking about transcendentalism. Rather, it is very much social, meaningful in the context of the society alone. Hence, his dharma leads to the philosophy of humanism. There might not be direct philosophical ideas, but we can see the extensive use of the Gita concept of dharma, and particularly of Swadharma. Further, the Gita concept of Swadharma, her Panditji, not only covers human domain alone, but extends to cover duties of inanimate objects like sun, moon, and so on. In one of his chapters, he mentioned that Surya tara kama kariba uchit, tara kartavya kariba uchit. So he's usually in Gita, when we talk about Swadharma, we know that it is basically about, we do talk in terms of the human context, because we say that Chaturvarna, Maya Chaturvarna is related to only the human domain, but his interpretation of Swadharma, it is used in an extensive sense, which includes not only humans, but also other inanimate objects. Further, the discussion on any society is not be effective if a due place is not given to women. In his Atmajivani, in the epilogue part, there are uses of 4 words only: Nari Sikkha, Nari Mukti, Nari Sikkha women education, Nari Mukti women freedom, Balya Vibhav child marriage, and Vidha Vibhav widowry marriage. I have understood in the sense that as he was influenced by Mahatma Gandhi, and because of the ecosystem of the early 20th century, he would have been encouraged for all these concepts. I do not find any conclusive evidence for these concepts. So to conclude, I can say that he is a man who believes and lives by the philosophy or by the principle of minimum, never with the principle of maximum. To quote Sri Ram Das, who once said in the Nilakantha Smriti Samiti meeting that Odisha is proud to have Nilakantha Das as her only son, but Nilakantha Das was unfortunate enough to born in Odisha. So my submission here is only to say that more research. I must congratulate Nandini and her entire team for taking this initiative, and I expect more research to continue on Nilakantha Das. Thank you for your patient hearing. Namaskar.